Oh, welcome to another episode of the Spurs Rewind. I'm your host, Joe Garcia, and today I'm going to be joined by our usual suspect here, our co host, the one and only Vicky Vic. Vicky, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. We've had a weird day. Everybody has been
Yeah.
so busy today. The day has not
Oh,
been all that
yes.
great, but we're happy to be on here talking Spurs basketball with everybody. And we're also going to be
Exactly.
joined by a special guest here. We're going to be joined by my personal friend here, the one and only Jonas Clark, who's also a writer for Project Spurs.
What's up, y'all?
What's up, Jonas? How you doing?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Better than the Spurs.
Oh, that's for sure. Trying to stay warm. Just got off the phone a little while ago too. Got some text messages from my kids telling me school has been closed for tomorrow. So that's something they're very excited about. Not me, not so
Yeah.
much, but them, yes. So you know how it is
Oh,
out in San
those were the
Antonio.
days. Those
Yeah,
were
you
the
know how it is.
days.
San Antonio weather. It gets into the 30s, and all of a
Yes,
sudden the whole city has to shut down. So that's what we're
exactly.
dealing with. The cold front that's coming in, and I say the cold front was attributed to the cold fourth quarter that the San Antonio Spurs had.
Oh,
Now this game was interesting because the Spurs, they looked like they were well on their way to a victory, and rightly so. Because they were playing against, for all intents and purposes, a Warriors G League team. They didn't have their superstars; they were all getting rest. But the Warriors are a scrappy team. They're great. They're great. They're a great 3-point shooting team. So you can't take your foot off the gas and you can't make a lot of mistakes. However, for the San Antonio Spurs, it's kind of been their Achilles heel throughout the season, and it's due to a lack of experience. They're very young still. So they still have to figure out a lot of things. And I think when they get into that crunch time in the fourth and teams start making a push or making a run on them, like the Golden State Warriors did, they kind of get a little bit complacent. They start reverting back to hero ball a little bit. The ball doesn't move like it should. Even Coach Pop said that after the game. They start taking bad shots, poor shot selection, turnovers. Turnovers again. It's like in key moments you're making boneheaded plays and you're not taking care of the ball. What happens is that it spells disaster for the San Antonio Spurs, and they squander a double-digit lead. I believe going into the fourth, they had a 17-point lead, and they squandered that. And unfortunately for the San Antonio Spurs, the Golden State Warriors came back and beat us, even though their team was decimated. And to our
yeah.
credit, to the San Antonio Spurs credit, the team's credit, they were without one Yaka Portal. And they really did miss him. Drew Eubanks was available. They didn't play him much. Don't know why. Yak Landell was out too because he was injured. And it seems like today I got the word, on social media that they both entered, concussion protocols. So who knows how long they're going to wind up being out for the foreseeable future, which means that we're going to have to rely heavily on one, maybe Juancho Hernan Gomez, maybe to just kind of step in there a little bit, and also Drew Eubanks. So we're going to be without Jakob and Yak Landell, so that's going to hurt the team that much more. But enough of me talking, Vicky. I know you're a big time Spurs fan. I mean, how did this game make you feel watching it and just seeing that league getting squandered?
Oh, it was frustrating. I think this can be put up there with that Houston loss and the Pistons loss, those two games against basically G League teams or depleted teams. This is right up there with those because they should have won. They had every opportunity to win, even without Jakob. Jakob played probably about half his usual minutes. But they went into the third quarter, I mean, the fourth quarter, yeah, like 17 points ahead. And then somehow were able to lose that. It's just, yeah, I don't think there's any excuse for them. I think it was just a bad game. They couldn't figure out how to get it together. And it was just frustrating to see like 4 or 5 possessions in a row where Lonnie Walker's like doing all this cool stuff. And then all of a sudden he just like falls flat. And it's like, okay,
Ice
never
cold.
mind, I'm done. Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, that upset me. I don't know. And I mean, things changed, like you said. The momentum started to switch, so they stopped going to Lonnie as much too, and the confidence wasn't there. People were playing a lot of like ISO ball. It just looks like they don't know what to do or not always, just last night and in those really bad losses. They don't know what to do when their opponent starts, ramping up and actually playing well against them. So it's growth, part of the growth, but I don't understand these losses. I just can't see how they can go from playing super well against a good team to playing like this, against a team that has nobody.
Well, you got to credit Golden State because Golden State in that fourth quarter, they really started clamping down on defense and started playing the Spurs really tight and tough. And on the offensive end, Golden State was actually doing some smart moves. They were going ahead
Yes.
and drawing in the defenders from the San Antonio Spurs and kicking the ball out. And lo and behold, somebody was out there in the wing just waiting, sink down an open jumper or a three-pointer. So Golden
Right.
State said, hey, it's not hard. We're going to go ahead and play really good team basketball to close out this game. And that's what actually won them the game. San Antonio could have done the same, but unfortunately, they're young and inexperienced. So that kind of showed its ugly head here again. In this game. The other game that they squandered, I believe it was a 20-point lead, was against the Phoenix Suns. And again, Spurs fans were upset about that as well. So this is the
Yeah.
second loss that they had going in the fourth with double digits. Jonas, I know that you have a lot to say about this game. Go ahead, my friend. Let us have it.
Well, I think the loss really happens because there's no Jakob Poeltl. That is the catalyst. This is why in all the trade rumors, whenever I see his name pop up as everybody else wants him except for Spurs fans, which I don't understand. They're so ready to get rid of him, but you see how he contributes in the pick and roll, how he just the stat that sticks out to me, guys, where this game was lost, and factoring that he didn't play since approximately halfway through the second quarter. Okay, so when you really look at it, the Spurs were out rebounded 46-34. The second chance opportunities, however, is where the key was made because they were out rebounded on the offensive end 15-5 in a game that you lost by 4 points. Okay, so when you're losing your double-double machine that Jakob Poeltl has definitely grown into and become, Jack Landale, who's your second tallest player on the roster, is also out. Drew Eubanks, great story. Like the guy. But he's 6'9", 6'10" on a good day.
Yeah.
He's a high motor guy, but when you really need to get those boards and have on the offensive end specifically, just not getting it done.
No.
You also have the points in the paint for the Warriors. Poeltl is a block machine too. Dubbed him 3 years ago as Block of Poeltl for a reason. And so when you're playing against an inexperienced team like the Warriors, he could have feasted there as well. And that's where you see it's a game of two halves. They had, I think it was an 8-point lead at the half. They built on that in the third quarter. But by that point, by the time you get to the fourth, everybody's gassed. And when you just can't play defense because Jakob Poeltl is not out there, that's a problem.
I'm going to ask you a question, though, Jonas. Why do you think that Coach Pop said Drew Eubanks, pretty much in that fourth quarter, they just started going small. They kind of stayed that way, and he didn't put in Drew. Drew could have maybe helped with the defense as far as, going up and getting some rebounds maybe, but, they didn't have anybody to guard the rim. They didn't have any rim protectors.
Yeah, they didn't.
I don't think it was so much in the fourth quarter was that he was trying to defend. You go up against a team like the Golden State Warriors, you have to score. Drew Eubanks is not going to fill that category for you. This is where we go back the last 2 seasons, and Jakob Poeltl didn't play in the fourth quarter because while he played defense, he still wasn't averaging double-digit points because it just wasn't that reliable offensive force. Now, he's definitely become that in January, multiple games over 20 points per game, and that's huge. But when you have to go out, that's where you saw it was just small ball lineups and just shooting. Unfortunately, the team they ran out of gas. They couldn't score anymore. You get outscored by almost just about 20 points in the fourth quarter. The Warriors, they'll get it done every time. Every time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Spurs fans because once again, they get their hearts broken, and that's kind of been the norm throughout the season. The Spurs have lost a lot of close games. They're
Yes.
in there, they're in the thick of things, and then it just seems to get away from them, whether it be in the third quarter, they just can't buy a bucket, and they get so far behind, they start making a run at it in the fourth, and they just get gassed and just don't have enough in the tank to get over the hump. And that's just been the normal for Spurs fans. And unfortunately, a lot of these fans are still fairly young. So a lot of them have only known the Spurs at the
Yeah.
peak of their success, going and winning, championships, and also being in the conversation when it came to teams that could possibly make a run deep in the playoffs. Unfortunately, for these 20 somethings now, this is new territory. They have not
Yeah.
been here when the team has gone through a rebuilding
Hey,
phase.
Joe, careful, because I fall into that category.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
talking
I mean,
about
Yeah, I'm
I
just
grew up
saying.
with successful Spurs.
Yeah, but the
yeah. No,
majority of
that's
people
true.
that you see complaining a lot are going to be the younger fan base. And I understand, they're
Yes.
used
Well,
to the Spurs playing at a high level. Now some of the older guys like myself, they're like, "Well, the Spurs need to make a trade and the Spurs need to do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, but if we go back and look at history, the Spurs made a miraculous 360 or when they got David Robinson. They
right.
were in the bottom of the league, and as soon as they
And even
drafted
then, it
him,
was still hard.
it was
They
hard.
needed
Yeah.
Tim
It
Duncan.
it
Yeah.
didn't happen overnight. When the Spurs drafted David Robinson, immediately their record was better. They were in the playoffs again, they were
Yeah.
making strides. But unfortunately, there was a lot of heartache still, in big game situations. They couldn't get over the hump with certain teams that were, let's say, at the top of the Western Conference or at the top of the Eastern Conference. And also in the
Yeah.
playoffs, a lot of heartache in there, a lot of first round knockouts. And it wasn't until they winded up getting one, Tim Duncan, that their
Right.
fortunes changed. And they right away, 2 years after they drafted him, Tim Duncan helps them get to the promised land and they get their first chip, and the rest is history. And they drafted well. They drafted Tony, they drafted Manu after that, and made a lot of good decisions moving forward. Unfortunately, right now we're seeing this rebuild, and
Right.
it's hard to watch. It's a hard pill to swallow right now because
It
Spurs fans
is.
have had enough of not getting to the playoffs, and they've had enough of the
Mhm.
mediocrity, but it's part of the process. If you had your expectations set really high this season, coming into this season saying, we know we don't have any of the veterans no more, and it's going to be the young guns, and they're going to take us to the promised land. That was kind of a delusion of grandeur because we knew that because they're young, that means that they don't have the experience. So my thing is, you're just going to have to be patient and see
Yeah.
what Pop in the front office do. Yes, this team does need help. We know that DeJounte Murray is a great point guard for the San Antonio Spurs team. He does need some help, and we have some pieces, but they're lacking that one individual player that can actually take over the complexion of the game. How they'll go ahead and get that, we don't know. It could be through free agency, it could be through the draft, it could be through trades. We just got to see how it's going to pan out. Jonas, any other thoughts?
What if I challenged y'all to think that that player is already on this roster?
I knew you were going to say that.
I can kind of
Okay,
agree with that. I agree with that. But I do
because
think that they still will need something else. I think we have like the David Robinson already in DeJounte Murray. And there's that extra person that they need. Maybe that person also is on the roster, but they haven't developed enough to show up. And I think I'm going to say what you probably are going to say, Jonas, but they've been developing these players to get to that point. That's why we're still seeing the development. And it's frustrating because they're being kind of thrown to the wolves. But they're young. A lot of them are very young. And I think they could potentially get to that point where they are the two superstars on a team. But sorry, I interrupted you.
no, you're good. I mean, because this is a young roster, but when you have so much youth, you have to factor that a lot of these starters, Devin Vassell, this is only his second year on the team in general. Josh Primo, everybody's getting a bit bigger of a taste of him because of the COVID issues that the team has dealt with. So you're getting a little bit more of his flavor and seeing what he can do. But I want to go back a year ago to the hype around drafting Primo is the fact he's 19 years old. There's still the fact that he could add an inch or two to his frame, which would make him 6'7", 6'8", with the point guard set of skills that he has. I mean, that's from a comparison side of things, that's like a LeBron James factor. 6'8" point guard to be able to distribute the ball, score at all levels. He's shooting the ball from the perimeter really well right now. And I think that the Primo selection, it's just going to take some time to develop, just like DeJounte. He's 5 years in, I think maybe even 6 years in now. He had to deal with it coming back from the ACL injury, but it took time to develop him because you didn't draft him in the top 5, right? But they drafted guys they knew that they could work with. Derek White, there's a reason why teams like the Atlanta Hawks want a Derek White. I'm not saying Derek White is one of your superstars, but he's a key piece to a competitor, and other teams recognize that. Jakob Poeltl, there's a reason why teams want him because of what he does on this Spurs team. So if you kind of hold back and just slow things down, Keldon Johnson, Mr. Gold Medal himself, he's has the potential. Draymond Green tweeted after the game that he's going to be an all-star and a perennial all-star. He sees that in Keldon Johnson. It's just going to require a little bit of patience because there's nothing else around them anymore. There's no LaMarcus Aldridge. There's no DeMar DeRozan to make the bad look not as bad.
Right.
But that's what you needed. You needed to get those guys out of here so you could go through the growing pains. And now you've got it to a point where you're seeing all of their bad because you can't rely on DeMar DeRozan in the final 3 minutes to make it a 4-point game or to try to bring it close. And I think that it's just one of those things where when you're talking about building a team, all these other teams have had to go through it. Look at the Phoenix Suns drafting in the top 5, how many times? And now they're coming along, but it took some time. So
it takes time.
If you have the patience to see it on other teams, why can't you see it on your own? Is what I would have been first. If you can see that they're working, and how long it's taken even Embiid to really enter the conversation, the transformation that Giannis had to go through to become what he did.
Yeah.
And you look at it, it wasn't overnight. It was a couple of years. And a lot of these guys on this team, Trey Jones, year 2, Devin Vassell, year 2, Josh Primo, year 1, Keldon Johnson, year 3. Look at the other guys from his class, from that class you got him in. Quindary Weatherspoon is a G leaguer with the Warriors who got called up just playing it off from the night before.
Yeah.
So it made sense to rest everybody. Luka Šimanić hasn't even played basketball in 3 weeks. What's happening with him in New York? No idea. He averaged 20 points and 13 rebounds during the Chase Cup, and he's just going off. So I know I'm going off on a rant, but it's just so frustrating that patience for development it's there for everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just the fan base currently right now. They want to see the team do better, and the close losses I think are mounting up at this point. Excuse me, got a dry throat here. The close losses are mounting up, and the fans get frustrated. That's basically what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but you can't. I guess the thing is, I get frustrated. Yeah, the close losses are the most frustrating thing. But a lot of the close losses this season, that was hard to say, have had a lot of good parts. You see a lot of growth and you see a lot of things that you didn't see last year, or that, we didn't see at the very beginning of the season. So I think that if fans would be a little patient and just look at kind of the overall performance of the team, not wins and losses, but how they're doing possession by possession and the different improvements that they're making, they would see a lot of good happening. And exactly like both of you have been saying, it's a long haul. It's not going to happen overnight. The wins are going to come, after time and after the time is put in by the players. But I think that, for all of the fans that are out there that are freaking out and just, so down on the Spurs, they just have to be patient and they have to be a little bit more analytical and looking at it. It goes beyond just winning and losing. And they're probably not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, we have some comments
that's
here. I'd like
just
to go ahead and recognize some of the people who are watching from YouTube. We have Martin Murray who was watching. I kind of flashed the comments here, and he was talking about the Spurs in the fourth. And he put not being able to get a bucket in the fourth drove him nuts, and it did the same to everybody.
That's what
And he also put on here, Kuminga was a tank going to the basket. That he was.
Yeah, because we didn't have Poeltl.
They didn't have an answer because they didn't have any bigs.
Yes.
They were all small. The Spurs went small ball.
Yes.
They didn't have really a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, we already said that. And then he also put on here this other comment. He says, yeah, their point differential is better than their record.
Yes.
And then we had another person viewing us from YouTube, Chris Aguerro. It was luck of the draw, and that's what he was referring to when I was talking about Spurs
Yeah.
drafting, David Robinson and
Tim
Tim
Duncan.
Duncan.
And all
And
of
then we
those
have another
guys.
comment here from Savo's DJ. He says, even with Duncan, Parker, and Manu, we lost in the first round a few times. That we did. I
Very
remember
true.
specifically the Memphis Grizzlies surprised
Yes.
the Spurs.
Or the
At 8 seed.
Clippers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
8 seed upsetting the 1 seeded Spurs
Wait, not
in
the
that
Clippers.
season.
What am I saying? Was it
Yeah.
the Clippers?
So that was one thing that really broke the hearts of Spurs fans. It was kind of a wasted season for everything that they did. They couldn't get over the hump against the Memphis Grizzlies. They just didn't match up well. Memphis had a lot of bigs, and that length really proved too much for the San Antonio Spurs to overcome, unfortunately. But as we go ahead and move forward here, I want to go ahead and show some of the comments from Spurs fans after that loss last night. And I did put a tweet up earlier in the day, and I told them, what do they think needs to change? So we're going to go ahead and go to some of those comments. Some of them, just a word of warning.
Feisty.
Yeah, the language. So let's hear now. Give me a second to go ahead and bring all these things up. Kind of put us off to the side there. All right, so here we go. Let's go down this, and I put Spurs fans' thoughts on the team's loss to the Warriors last night. Share their comments. Alex E. Peña says Quindary Weatherson was a Spurs still found a way to lead against that guy. And then we have Setter says inexperienced young team show up again fourth. He goes unable to protect the lead, execute a close game, attributed to years of deferring to previous all-stars in the team. Grizzlies encountered this before, and they're studs now. And Drew put on here for a better word, he goes, we are rebuilding. We had our run, move forward, climb back top. Gonna take time. This is part of it. We're gonna get J 2.0. It was while we're disappointed that we could hear the Golden State fans cheering at the AT&T Center. Maybe if we had more Spurs fans in attendance and we're cheering our Spurs on, then maybe we could have given the guys the confidence to secure the dub, secure the win. The problem with that is a lot of these Warrior fans are Spurs fans. They just go and cheer their jersey.
I hate
They put on the T-shirt, and then at the next game they're there in their Spurs jersey.
Yeah,
it's not what
everybody
the next
was thinking.
season
in their Lakers
jersey,
and then
exactly. It's that these fans travel well. A lot of these fans are just chasing the hype train,
Yeah.
And Rick Acosta put, so I'm fine with the loss. There's no quick fix, in my opinion. He puts, there isn't a change they can do that's going to suddenly make them a winning team. And then says, change nothing. This is a rebuilding team. Hard life lessons will turn into positive results in the future. I like the way you think, Steve.
I like that.
And Bush B, who's watching from Australia.
Embarrassing.
She puts embarrassing.
I saw that. I was like,
and our good friend Josh Barret. He put losing Jakob was huge in this one. Kuminga wouldn't have gone crazy if he was still there. Beyond that, horrible shooting down the stretch again. Team as a whole was shooting 14.6% from the and clutch situations. And yes, he also put, I spelled the hashtag, put hashtag por vida, and I put pro vida.
Josh promo. Aww. Yeah. Nah, people are mad. Yeah. That's understandable. It's true. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, look, he's developing. At the end of the day, he's the wing piece that you want. He's shown the ability to defend very, very well. And then what he brings from 3-point range, but the 3-point side takes some extra time to develop. It's just getting used to that shot, getting comfortable with that shot, and then also understanding that it's not always coming your way. This offense still just has to find its flow. That's that at the end of the day, that's where it's at. They have to find their flow, and that's just going to come with time.
First up, people are saying they can't hear you all. They can only hear me. So I don't know. I was going to tell you that in the chat, but I thought I should just, yeah. They said they can't hear you. You or Jonas. I think on
That
the YouTube stream. I think. I don't know if it's different per stream, but I'll go ahead and answer the question while you work on that. I mean, I agree with Jonas. I think it's frustrating for him personally because he's young and he knows, comparing himself among other players that are in the same position as him, that he is in a better I mean, he's got better statistics than a couple of other guys that are out there, but he's on a team that isn't in, playoff contention right now. And I think he understands that as well. But also it's just kind of like the norm for Spurs players not to get picked for these kinds of things. And now that they are on the lower part of the table pretty consistently. I think it's just going to be a lot harder for them to get recognized if they're not a playoff contender. So I get that he's upset and he has a right to feel upset, but at the same time, he can't let it get to him too much because in the end, it's still a popularity thing and it's about who's going to get the most ratings. And these selections are a little bit, more meaningful because of who's picking them. But I think that it's still, they're picking the players that are on the teams that are getting the best ratings. And that's always what it comes down to. So I think he has good, people on his side telling him these are the factors that are playing into it. I think DeJounte is a good influence because it's never, at least he doesn't let it show that if it bothers him that he's not getting these recognitions. So, I mean, he's going to get there. I do think that he's super talented and he is one of the best sophomore players that's out in the league right now. It's just, he's not going to get these kinds of call-ups at this time with the record they have, especially. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
I
Right.
Ooh, I'm going to say he gets in. I think that
Really?
I think that there's the recognition of his star power. Everybody's been waiting for the Spurs to have their franchise player. DeJounte Murray finally is starting to step out. DeJounte Murray is finally starting to step out of the shadow of DeMar, who took the reins from Kawhi. And so now he's starting to become a little bit more, and you're seeing him get the recognition, even though it's just in a reserve status for the All-Star team. He's starting to get recognized. I think Keldon Johnson, again, the best thing for his career was Pop being in charge of the Olympic roster and having the option to take him along with him, because it got Keldon Johnson introduced to the best talents in the NBA. A relationship was built with Draymond. A relationship was built with Kevin Durant. A relationship was built with the rest of that roster. And so now his name is buzzing around. And then you factor every game that you see. And I oftentimes watch the opposing team's broadcast. I'm listening to their audio. And they always bring up the gold medal. They always bring up how he had that opportunity. And that's huge because that you now have a selling point for one of your young Spurs. And I think that with his 3-point percentage being what it is, how effective he's been, I think that they recognize they have the opportunity to get ahead of the next young thing coming out of San Antonio, and they're going to give him that opportunity. The old Damari Carroll.
I think they're just gonna buy him out. Sadly, I don't think they really. I think they've been waiting and trying to figure something out, but I don't think anything's come along. And it's just coming. Like the deadline's coming. I feel like there's not really any other option.
Ooh, I think he'll get traded. I'm gonna go against you guys. I think that there's some team that wants him enough to give up a second, to give up something for him to make sure that they're the ones that lock it down. Because of what he can bring, and watching situations like Thad Young and like Damari Carroll when he was here in town, it is really unfortunate because you see how they could help, especially on a night, where you just need a little bit more consistent presence. It's not to say that the young guys aren't getting it done, but just to provide an example, a good example, of how to play. I think that he gets moved. There's somebody that wants him. He showed his value in Chicago. And I think that it still holds. We're trading Thaddeus Young.
Um, looking at the schedule, I think realistically they could get 3 wins. I agree with you on the Pelicans and the Thunder, but I also think they should win against the Rockets. So I want to say that I think they'll come out with 3 wins. You never know, though. I feel like they could surprise us. They could go over and get a win against one of these other teams, even though we don't expect it. Or they could end up losing to these teams that we think that they have good chances against. I think it's just, yeah, exactly. It's so unpredictable with them. I think that it's honestly been so hard to try to figure out what they're going to do. But yeah, for me right now, I'm saying they're going to go 3-5.
I'm gonna flip that. I'm gonna go 5-3. I'm gonna say 5-3 because the team plays at the level of their competition. It's been an issue for the last 4 years, and I think that they're given everything that we're facing in this world right now, with the who could be in and out because of the pandemic situation. You might even look at situations where teams that are liking their spot, like the Cavaliers, might start to rest some guys. They're hosting the All-Star game. So you would want to make sure that you've got your young stars in the Rising Challenge and you've got your players playing in the All-Star game in front of your home crowd. And I think that if they like where they're at, which I think is still about within 2 games of the lead in the Eastern Conference, then you could see that kind of them want to rest players. But I think that it's just whatever. If the Spurs are being projected to win, market for a loss. If they're being projected to lose, market for a win, because they either get too high on themselves with the confidence and they drop a game that they shouldn't, or they wear that chip on their shoulder and they're like, everybody's against us. They're trying to count us out. We're going to go show them what we're made of. So give me 5-3, because I think that there's looking at this lineup, there's easily 5 teams they should lose to. And that's exactly why they won't.
Okay. Yeah. And they should have won. They should have won. Yeah. It was like, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. COVID. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no.
I mean, yeah, I cover them for Project Spurs. So, of course, I love me some G League action. When you talk about the injuries that they're facing at the taller end of the lineup, Devontae Kaycock, somebody was asking me on Twitter earlier, well, is this an opportunity for Devontae Kaycock to get a call-up opportunity? 6'9" wing, double average, rebounding, being recognized actually tonight on G League TV on YouTube for his performance. He's got 15 consecutive double-doubles, which is just huge. So you might see him actually in San Antonio before too long, but the so the team in Austin might not look the same, but I think that Primo is gonna eventually get called back down. They're gonna run him. It sounds like just get him as much work as possible between both clubs. Austin, it's a great experience, but still, right now, they're not winning without Zach Collins. The only 2 wins they have so far this season were with Zach Collins out there. I think they're actually third. I picked up a third the other night.
Don't do it,
If you're
people. Don't
just
do it.
now going, you might have better odds going out in the woods and trying to hunt something for real, Joe.
Yeah. La Michoacana. Yes.
At Jark Clonas, JARKCLONAS. I don't know if you can display my name, but I typed it in there somewhere.